There is a rhythm to a kitchen that has held 3 Michelin stars for a decade. It is not frantic. It is not loud. It is a symphony of controlled heat and absolute silence, broken only by the sharp, rhythmic click of knives against cutting boards and the hiss of searing meat. For 25 years, I conducted this symphony. My name is Isabelle Fontaine. I am 54 years old, and until 6 months ago, I was the executive chef of L'Eternel, the crown jewel of the city's dining scene. I didn't just cook food, I curated memories. I knew that Table 4 preferred their duck breast rested for exactly 7 minutes, not 5. I knew that the reduction for the venison needed to be started at 6 a.m., using shallots that I hand-picked from the market myself. My hands are scarred from burns and calloused from labor, but they possess a wisdom that no culinary school can teach. They know when the dough is alive. They know when the sauce has found its soul. But in the eyes of the new ownership group, my soul was irrelevant. They didn't care about the depth of my consommé. They cared about the lighting. They cared about the shareability of the plate. The end arrived on a humid afternoon in July. I was in the test kitchen perfecting a saffron-infused bisque when Julian walked in. Julian was the representative for the investment firm that had bought the restaurant the previous year. He was a man who wore sneakers with suits and used words like disrupt and pivot when talking about soufflés. He was holding his phone, as he always did, scrolling through a feed of bright, saturated videos. "Isabelle," he said, not even looking at the pot I was stirring, "we need to talk about the menu. It's tired." I wiped my hands on my apron. "Tired? We are booked solid for 3 months, Julian. The critics called the spring menu a revelation." "Critics are dying, Isabelle. Print is dead. The new currency is attention. Look at this." He shoved his phone in my face. On the screen, a young man with bleached hair was dumping liquid nitrogen over a pile of neon-colored spaghetti while techno music blasted. The video had 4 million likes. This is Jax. He's 29. He's a visionary. He calls his style postmodern sensory overload. We're bringing him in. I stared at him. "You're bringing in a TikTok personality to L'Eternel?" "We're bringing in a creative director," Julian corrected, his voice tight. "You're welcome to stay on as his sous chef. You can handle the prep work, the sauces, the boring stuff. Jax will handle the concepts. We need food that pops on a 4K screen. Your brown sauces and beige breads, they don't photograph well. They don't go viral." The insult wasn't just to me. It was to the food. It was to the generations of technique that I carried in my blood. I untied my apron. I folded it neatly, placing it on the stainless steel counter next to the saffron bisque. "My food is meant to be eaten, Julian," I said, my voice trembling with a quiet fury. "Not scrolled past while someone sits on a toilet. If you want a circus, hire a clown, but you will not do it with my name on the door." I walked out. I left my knives. I left the kitchen I had designed. I walked out into the blinding afternoon sun, unemployed for the first time since I was 19. The months that followed were a study in grief. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by cookbooks, feeling like an instrument that had been unstrung. I tried to avoid the internet, but it was impossible. L'Eternel was everywhere. The relaunch was a spectacle. Jax was on every magazine cover, posing with tweezers and dry ice. They renamed the restaurant Vibe. The dining room was stripped of its linens and flooded with purple neon light. The menu was a list of emojis. I watched from a distance as my legacy was dismantled. I read the early buzz. Influencers raved about the experience. They posted videos of desserts that exploded and cocktails served in IV bags. Isabel Fontaine is yesterday's news. Jax is the future. But food cannot lie. You can filter a photo, but you cannot filter a flavor. 2 months in, the cracks began to show. It started with whispers in the industry. The produce suppliers, men and women I had known for decades, called me. They told me Jax was canceling orders for fresh truffles and importing synthetic oils to cut costs. They told me the kitchen was a war zone, that the staff I had trained were quitting in droves because Jax didn't know how to run a brigade. He knew how to pose, but he didn't know how to lead. Then came the night of the Michelin review. It is the night every chef fears and craves. The inspectors are anonymous, but we know the signs. And on that Tuesday in November, word got out that the senior inspector for the guide was dining at Vibe. I wasn't there, but I heard every detail. I heard that Jax, terrified of the pressure, tried to execute a new complex dish live for the inspector, a deconstructed beef Wellington encased in an edible smoke bubble. It was a trick he had done in a 60-second video. But in a video, you can cut away before the meat goes cold. In a real service, there are no cuts. The smoke bubble popped prematurely, drenching the table in sticky residue. The beef was raw in the center, not rare. The pastry was soggy. And because Jax had fired the experienced sous chefs who could have saved him, there was no one to fix the mess. The inspector took one bite, placed his napkin on the table, and paid the bill without finishing. Meanwhile, across town, I was doing the only thing I knew how to do. I was cooking. I hadn't opened a new restaurant. I didn't have the capital. Instead, I had opened my living room. I called it the Sunday table. No neon lights, no nitrogen, just 12 seats, a handwritten menu, and me. I cooked the classics. Coq au vin that had marinated for 48 hours, bread that I woke up at 3 a.m. to knead, a simple pear tart with creme fraiche. Word spread, not on TikTok, but in the way things used to spread. Whispers between people who actually loved food. You have to go to Isabel's, they said. It tastes like coming home. 3 weeks after the disaster at Vibe, I heard a knock on my door during prep time. It was Julian. He looked 10 years older. The swagger was gone. His expensive suit looked rumbled. "Isabel," he said, standing in the hallway of my modest apartment building. The smell of roasting garlic and rosemary wafted out around me, enveloping him. I saw his nostrils flare. He looked hungry. "What do you want, Julian?" "We lost them," he whispered. 2 stars, gone. The guide released a preliminary statement. They called the meal an insult to the history of the location. Investors are pulling out. Jax quit this morning. He said the stress was messing with his aura. He took a step forward, desperation in his eyes. "Come back. Name your salary. We'll fire everyone. We'll rename it L'Eternel. Just, please, I need you to fix it." I looked at this man who had treated my life's work as content. I looked at his frantic eyes, and then I looked back into my small kitchen where a pot of stock was gently bubbling, filling the room with warmth and promise. "You made a mistake, Julian," I said softly. "You thought I was successful because I had stars. I didn't cook for the stars. I cooked for the people who sat at the table. You wanted a viral moment? You got one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have guests arriving in an hour, and my dough is rising." I closed the door. The following year, Vibe closed down. It is now a retail space for fast fashion. But if you walk 3 blocks south to a small, unassuming storefront with no sign, just a golden light spilling onto the sidewalk, you will find Isabel's. There is a 6-month waiting list. We don't have a TikTok account. We don't allow flash photography. We just have food. Real, honest food. And last week, a letter arrived. A single star. It means more to me than the 3 I lost. Because this one is mine. The world may be obsessed with the new, the young, and the flashy, but hunger, true hunger, always comes home to the ones who know how to feed it. And I am just getting started.